became a teacher to change the world. And the most important way I want to change the world is to help my students become better thinkers by becoming better readers. But high school students feel books are outdated, and literary books are as useless and archaic as lace handkerchiefs. And yet, according to Smithsonian Magazine, people spend 3 times as much time reading today as they did in 1980. They're just doing it on screens, especially their cell phone screens. Cell phones are students' favorite way of connecting with each other, and as mobile technology has evolved from personal communication device to pocket-sized computer, with the world. Is it possible, then, that cell phones can also connect them with literature? Can cell phones help students engage with a rich source of new and challenging ideas by showing them that literature is not about school, but about themselves? The literature indicated that cell phones were an excellent medium for engaging students with content. Fisher and Baird were among several researchers who discovered that cell phones can provide an avenue for learning that is easy, effective, authentic, and rich in intellectual opportunities. Matthews envisioned students as active participants in the formation of their own knowledge and futures, for which cell phones, with their built-in mobility, social interaction, and connectivity, provided the perfect medium. My research built on those premises, focusing on literature as the fertile field growing those opportunities and knowledge. Calverley Ward and Calverley note that the disconnect between the skills kids learn in school and the skills they learn in the rest of their lives leads to bored and unmotivated students. In this project, my purpose was to discover whether cell phones would enable students to repair that disconnect, specifically between the literature in their English class and their understanding of their humanity, by encouraging them to make their own meaningful connections through their own connective tool. The real beginning of my research was my AR pitch, "They're just playing around," an analogy comparing the way cubs use the skills they develop playing with each other to survive in their adult world with the way teenagers will use the skills they develop playing with technology to succeed in our adult world. This project opened my eyes to the importance of these supposed toys, that they really are an essential step in growing into the adult world these kids will live in. The ADDIE process shaped how I would proceed. After researching the literature, I analyzed my target audience and their need to more fully engage with formal education in general and literature in particular. This evidenced the necessity to use the tools they are playing with as toys to facilitate their intellectual development now and their becoming successful adults in a technology-oriented world in the future. Then, using pedagogy based on Gagne's learning domains in the Assure model, I designed and developed my resources and learning activities. Cycle 1 was comprised of 2 activities using cell phones to complete assignments. The first assignment involved each student taking the role of a character in the novel Lord of the Flies and texting other characters, responding to the events in the novel. Alas, I depended on the novelty of using cell phones for schoolwork to ensure student participation, and this activity was not structured effectively. While students grew less restive and more accepting of the assignment as it went on, the number of assignments turned in, approximately 60% of the class, and the superficial quality of the work indicated a lack of student engagement. As Matthews and Koch both noted in their research, teachers need to not just dump cell phones into their curriculum, but, as with any teaching tool, base lessons on sound pedagogy and structure. Oops, I had expected technology to do all my work for me. The second activity was much more successful. A PowerPoint, a podcast, and a flash presentation made the directions very precise and very clear. Students worked with a partner to create visuals exploring the meaning of a symbol from Lord of the Flies. On their cell phones, they composed messages defining the symbol and what it symbolized, and its significance in the novel, in the universe, and in their own lives. The activity created not only downright excitement, but very thoughtful connections between the book and concepts relevant to students. Moreover, nearly all students were astonished to find that cells were handy devices for generating stuff that leads to academic success: organization, efficient and easily retrievable idea and document storage, and easy-to-use channels for communication and collaboration. This time results were more conclusive. Out of 45 students responding, 40 were very enthusiastic. This was encouraging, but overall I found myself disappointed. My conclusion was that cell phones were a great tool, but only a tool. They did not in and of themselves engender student engagement. Rather, it was a good assignment using the tool that engendered the engagement. And then I began Cycle 2. The first activity commenced 2 days into our reading of the Zeffirelli Hamlet. Instead of handwriting their notes, students were encouraged to text their notes on their cells. Day 1 of Cycle 2 saw about 25% of each class emailing me their notes from their phones. By the end of Day 5, it was over 60%. Not only were the texted notes more extensive and critically in-depth as compared to each student's previous handwritten notes and non-texting students' notes, but I was shocked to observe that students who were texting notes were actually far more attentive to and interested in the film than those who weren't. Students emphatically validated my observations. Those who were texting stating that it was faster, easier, more comfortable, more interesting, and yes, they did pay more attention to the film. Those who were not texting stating that they were amazed but their texting friends were not cheating, but really staying on task, and that they wished they had texted too. When we switched over to the Olivier Hamlet, a more challenging film, we began utilizing Twitter to engage more interactively. Tweeting wasn't as successful in terms of number of participants as note-taking. About 30% of each class participated, while the remaining students sat in tweet groups and passed around a paper on which they wrote tweet-style comments. While cell tweeters' responses indicated that they were having more fun and interacting with the film more in depth, most were comments on a character's actions or plot summaries, rather than building on each other's ideas and responses. Then, about 6 days into the film, I assigned students to read and discuss a blog posting called The 7 Golden Rules of Tweeting. The focus was that tweeting should be a meaningful sharing of ideas, responses, and opinions. Afterwards, the entire class evidenced more depth in both film and interpersonal responses. Though our initial venture into the oceans of Twitter didn't produce the interactive results I had hoped, I've done other learning activities that began tentatively and grew to amazingness only with tweaking and experience. Still, of the students who participated in cell tweeting and took the post survey, nearly 3 times as many indicated that they did find it helped them engage with the film as those who indicated it didn't. Where Cycle 1 left me with the perception that a cell phone is just another tool, Cycle 2 blew that out of the water. 2/3 of participants said taking notes on their cells really helped them understand and enjoy Hamlet, and though only 40% of students used Twitter, all of them but one really felt it helped a lot. These results were beyond what I had expected from the literature. An even more surprising discovery was how productive cell phones made some of my least academic students. 2 of my special ed students began the first film turning in paper notes for half a class of film that ran 3 bullets long. When we switched over to cells, they each emailed me a full page of notes. Later, about the same time we switched over to Olivier and the study packet, one had to have surgery on his right arm. His writing hand is out of commission. How to do work? Can he text with his left hand? Of course. When this special ed student had been writing answers by hand, they were 2 or 3 words. When he texted, even left-handed, they were 2 or 3 sentences. I am suspecting now that the assignment that didn't work in Cycle 1, the role-playing texts, didn't work partly because seniors are too old for it. They are looking for meaningful work to do, work that puts them on track to move into the adult world, and pretending to be a character in a book texting another character just doesn't do it for them anymore. But when I ask them to relate to one character's situation or to apply truths they learned from the book in their own lives, they were all over that. Getting the cell phones out from the underbelly of my surreptitiously texting students' desks and into the warm academic light on top of them has been a revolution. Turns out high school students are reading and writing more than ever on their cell phones, interacting, creating meaning, and this research suggests that they will also interact thereby with literature. Given meaningful tasks to learn meaningful content, they work eagerly, even more so if they can transform a beloved toy into a tool to do it. The challenge, then, is putting meaningful tools with meaningful literature. Students are hungry for learning they can use. Assignments like the concept visuals remind them that literature's purpose is to tell communal stories that fall into that category. The stories tell them who they are, and who they were, and who they might become based on the choices they make today. The cell phones that record the communality of their lives have given them more access to those stories. Another avenue that I hope to directly open up more through cell phones is our learning management system. Some students with smartphones were already accessing our LMS right in class, joining 2 powerful tools to re-energize their learning. And the third major thrust for next year will be problem-based learning. The purpose of literature is not to torture the young, but to give people ammunition to vicariously figure out how to solve problems that other humans like them have faced. Like the rest of us, students don't like to sit and have other people try to push irrelevant information into their heads, but they do like to solve problems and make contributions that make their world a better place. They're carrying little computers in their pockets, and we're telling them to turn them off when they get to school. Why not instead teach them how to use them to learn and grow and change the world?